Have you ever felt like someone was pulling your strings, making you doubt yourself, or subtly twisting reality to keep you on edge? You sense something is off, but you can't quite put your finger on it. They smile in your face but leave you feeling unsettled, as if you're playing a game you never agreed to join. That's because you are. And the worst part? They know exactly what they're doing. People who play mind games aren't just acting randomly, they have a purpose: control, validation, power, or simply amusement at your expense. They test your reactions, push your buttons, and see how much they can get away with before you notice. And that's the key: you have to notice. You can't fight a battle you don't even realize you're in. It starts subtly. Maybe they shower you with attention one day, then disappear the next, leaving you questioning if you did something wrong. Maybe they make sarcastic jokes about you, then dismiss your feelings with "relax, I was just kidding." Or they twist your words, making you feel like the bad guy when you were just defending yourself. These are not random actions. These are tactics, calculated moves in a game where the only way to win is to stop playing altogether. But the moment you recognize the game, something shifts. Suddenly, you're not confused anymore. You see through their tactics, and that's when their power over you begins to fade. When someone tries to guilt trip you, you recognize it for what it is: an attempt to make you responsible for their emotions. When they give you the silent treatment, you no longer panic or chase after them. You understand it's just a ploy to manipulate your response. When they create drama out of nowhere, you don't get pulled in. You see it as a test of your emotional control. And this is where dark stoicism comes into play. A stoic doesn't let others dictate their emotions. They observe, they analyze, and most importantly, they control their reactions. The manipulator wants you to feel small, insecure, or desperate for their approval. But when you stand firm, when you don't give them the reaction they crave, they lose their power. Picture this: someone tries to gaslight you, twisting the truth to make you doubt your own reality. Instead of engaging in their twisted version of events, you respond with calm certainty. "I know what I experienced, and I won't argue about it." You don't need to prove yourself to them, because the moment you start defending your reality, you're already letting them control the frame. Or maybe they use passive aggression, throwing subtle insults disguised as jokes. Instead of getting defensive, you meet their words with an amused smirk and say, "That was a weak attempt. Try harder next time." Now, they are the ones caught off guard. The moment you stop playing their game, you change the rules. Some people won't like it when you refuse to be controlled. They'll push harder, test your limits, try to provoke a reaction. But if you stand your ground, they'll eventually realize their tactics don't work on you. And once a manipulator sees they can't manipulate you, they have only two options: either change their approach or leave. Either way, you win. Because in the end, mind games only work on those who don't recognize them. The moment you do, the moment you refuse to play along, you reclaim your power. And that's when you become untouchable. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to take pleasure in pushing your buttons? They provoke, manipulate, and stir up chaos, all while watching your reactions like it's some kind of game. They want you angry. They want you frustrated. They want you to lose control. Why? Because the moment you let them dictate your emotions, they win, and you become nothing more than a puppet in their hands. But what if, no matter what they said, no matter what they did, you refused to give them that satisfaction? What if you could look them in the eye, completely unbothered, while their tricks fell flat? Imagine the power in that. Imagine the frustration they'd feel when their usual games no longer work on you. That is the power of emotional detachment. That is how you break their control. People who play games with you rely on one thing: your reaction. They push just enough to trigger you, to make you snap, to get inside your head, and the moment you react the way they want, They know they own you. But what happens when you don't? When their insults don't shake you, when their silent treatment doesn't bother you, when their attempts to control your emotions are met with nothing but calm indifference, they lose their grip, they lose their power. This is where stoicism becomes your greatest weapon. A stoic doesn't suppress their emotions, they master them. They feel everything but control what they show. They understand that true power isn't in loud outbursts or emotional battles. It's in silence, in stillness, in refusing to let anyone dictate how they feel. It's the ability to smile when someone tries to anger you, to stay calm when someone tries to break you, to remain unmoved even when chaos surrounds you. Think about this. Have you ever seen someone try to argue with a person who refuses to engage? It's infuriating for them. They expect anger, but get peace. They expect weakness, but get strength. And eventually they give up because there's nothing more frustrating to a manipulator than someone who refuses to be controlled. Now, this doesn't mean you ignore everything or let people walk all over you. No. Detachment isn't about weakness. It's about choosing where your energy goes. It's about knowing what deserves a response and what doesn't. Not every insult needs to be defended. Not every challenge needs to be met. Not every battle is worth fighting. And sometimes, the best way to win is to refuse to play at all. Picture this. Someone tries to make you jealous by playing mind games. Instead of reacting, you stay cool, uninterested. They try to make you feel guilty for setting boundaries. Instead of explaining yourself, you stand firm. They try to trigger you with passive-aggressive comments. Instead of getting drawn in, you respond with a calm, amused look, letting them know without saying a word that you see right through them. And the moment they realize they can't shake you, the game is over. Because the truth is, manipulative people don't want a challenge. They want control. They want to feed off your emotions. But when you refuse to play, when you remain calm, detached, and in control of yourself, they have no choice but to walk away. So let them play their games. Let them try their tricks. Stay still. Stay unbothered. Because nothing unsettles a manipulator more than someone they can't control. And that someone is you. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to test you, push your limits, and see just how much they can get away with? It starts small. A favor here, a dismissive comment there, an expectation that you'll always say yes. And before you know it, you're bending over backward, accommodating their every need, while they take more and more, giving nothing in return. And you? You feel drained, used, and wondering how it got to this point. But here's the truth. It didn't just happen. They were watching. They were testing. They were learning exactly where your boundaries were, and if they even existed at all. Because people who play games with you, who manipulate, who take advantage, don't do it by accident. They do it because they can. And if you let them, they will keep going until there's nothing left of you. That is why you must set boundaries, strong, clear, and unbreakable. Boundaries are not about pushing people away. They are about protecting yourself. They are the invisible lines that say, this is where I end and you begin. This is what I will allow and this is what I will not tolerate. And if someone crosses them, there are consequences. Not threats, not warnings, consequences. The problem is most people struggle with this. They fear setting boundaries will make them seem rude or difficult. They worry about hurting feelings or losing relationships. But let me ask you this. If someone gets upset because you won't let them take advantage of you, was that person ever truly on your side? A real friend, a real partner, a real ally will respect your boundaries. Only those who benefited from your lack of them will resist. And that's exactly why setting boundaries is such a powerful test. When you start saying no, when you stop allowing disrespect, you will see people's true colors. Some will accept and adjust. Others will push harder, trying to guilt trip, manipulate, or even punish you for standing your ground. Let them. Their reaction tells you everything you need to know about who they really are. Now, here's where the dark Stoic mindset comes in. A Stoic does not beg for respect. They command it. Not with words, not with threats, but with the unwavering confidence of someone who knows their worth. When someone crosses the line, a Stoic doesn't explode in anger or break down in frustration. They enforce their boundary calmly, firmly, and without apology. No emotional outbursts, no over explaining, just action. Picture this. Someone constantly interrupts you, dismisses your opinions, or belittles you in front of others. Instead of laughing it off or pretending it doesn't bother you, you look them in the eye and say, I don't allow people to speak to me that way. And then you walk away. No argument, no debate, just a clear, unshakable line. Or maybe someone always expects you to be available at their convenience, never considering your time or priorities. Instead of making excuses or feeling guilty, you simply say, I can't help you with that. No justification, no bending, just a firm boundary that reminds them you are not at their disposal. And here's the best part. When you start doing this, you won't just stop being manipulated. You will gain respect, not from everyone, because some people will hate that they can no longer control you, but from yourself. You will walk taller, speak with more confidence, and feel a sense of power you never knew you had, because now you decide what you allow into your life. So let them test you. Let them try to push past your limits. Because the moment you stand firm, the moment you make it clear that you will not bend, that's the moment you win. And in that moment, they realize they can't play games with you anymore. Have you ever noticed how some people crave your reaction? They thrive on drama, feed off your frustration, and push your buttons just to see how you'll respond. It's almost as if they enjoy watching you lose control, like it gives them power over you. They want to get inside your head, make you second guess yourself, and most of all, they want you to engage because the moment you react, they know they've got you exactly where they want you. But what happens when you give them nothing? When their cruel words, their passive aggressive comments, their manipulative silence all fall into emptiness? When you don't argue, don't plead, don't try to explain, what happens when you meet their games with silence? Silence is power, silence is control, and when used correctly, silence is the one thing that will make manipulators panic. Most people underestimate the power of saying nothing. They feel the need to defend themselves, to explain, to react, to do something. But every word you give them is fuel. Every argument is proof that their game is working. And every emotional response is confirmation that they still have control. But silence? Silence is a wall they can't climb, a door slammed shut in their face. It forces them to sit in their own chaos without you there to absorb it. When someone tries to insult you, they want you to get angry. They want you to fight back, to defend yourself, to prove them wrong. But what happens when you simply don't respond? When you give them nothing but an unreadable expression and walk away? Suddenly, they're left standing alone with their own negativity, their own bitterness, their own failed attempt to break you. Or think about the silent treatment, a classic manipulation tactic designed to make you feel anxious, to make you chase after them, desperate for their attention. But when you refuse to engage, when you treat their silence as irrelevant, as nothing more than empty space, they lose control. Their plan backfires. Because silence only works as a weapon when it creates fear. But when you are at peace in your own silence, it is they who feel unsettled. This is where the dark Stoic mindset comes in. The Stoic doesn't waste words on fools. They do not explain themselves to those who are committed to misunderstanding them. They do not argue with people whose only goal is to create conflict. They understand that silence is not weakness, it is strategy. It is choosing to put your energy where it actually matters instead of throwing it into the void of pointless battles. Imagine someone trying to provoke you, trying to get a reaction out of you, trying to make you feel small. And instead of engaging, instead of explaining, instead of proving yourself, you just look at them. You hold their gaze, calm and unreadable. And then, without a word, you turn away. You go on with your life as if their existence is completely irrelevant to yours. That moment right there, that is power. That is the ultimate victory. Because nothing makes a manipulator feel more powerless than someone who refuses to play along. So let them talk, let them try, let them throw their words like stones into an ocean that doesn't even ripple. And while they waste their breath, you remain still, unshaken, untouchable. Because when they realize they can no longer get to you, that's the moment they realize they have lost. Have you ever noticed how some people rush to provoke, manipulate, and twist situations in their favor, hoping you'll react impulsively? They want to corner you, force you into quick decisions, and make you act before you've had the chance to think. Why? Because an emotional reaction is easier to control than a calculated one. They don't want you calm. They don't want you collected. They want you caught off guard, stumbling, second-guessing yourself. But what happens when you don't take the bait? When you pause instead of reacting? When you let time work in your favor instead of theirs? What happens when you watch them, silently, patiently, letting them reveal themselves before you ever make a move? That is the power of patience, and it's a power most people will never understand. See, manipulative people rely on your impatience. They rely on you jumping to conclusions, making rash decisions, or reacting in the heat of the moment. They want you flustered, off balance. But patience? Patience is a weapon they don't know how to fight against. It forces them to wait, to wonder, to question whether their tricks are working. And in that space, where they expect chaos but are met with silence, they begin to unravel. Imagine someone trying to rush you into a decision, pressing you, making it seem urgent. A manipulator will say things like, "You have to decide now," or "If you don't act immediately, you lose this opportunity." But you don't flinch. You let the pressure roll off you. You take your time. And in that pause, you expose their desperation. You force them to wait. You refuse to be rushed into a trap. Or picture someone trying to stir drama, waiting for you to snap, to react, to fight back. Instead, you let them talk. You let them rant. You listen, not with the intent to respond, but with the intent to observe. And in that moment, they start to panic because their power was never in their words. It was in your reaction to them. And when you don't react, when you meet their storm with stillness, you take away the very thing they were counting on. This is why patience is one of the deadliest tools in dark stoicism. A stoic doesn't rush. A stoic doesn't act out of impulse. They wait. They watch. They let people reveal themselves, knowing that time is the great revealer of truth. A liar can only keep up their act for so long. A manipulator will eventually slip. A game player will tire of waiting for a reaction that never comes. Think about how powerful that makes you. Instead of being the one who's always responding, always defending, always explaining, you become the one who sets the pace. You control the rhythm. You decide when to move and when to stay still. And in doing so, you shift the power dynamic entirely in your favor. So the next time someone tries to force a reaction out of you, don't give it to them. The next time someone tries to pressure you, let them wait. The next time someone plays games, thinking they can manipulate you into acting on their timeline, smile and take your time. Because patience is not just about waiting, it's about winning. And when you master it, you become unstoppable. ChatGPT said, have you ever felt the sting of betrayal? That moment when someone you trusted, someone you thought was on your side, turns out to be playing their own game, using you as just another piece on their board? It's a gut punch, a moment of disbelief, and then comes the anger, to urge to confront, to expose them, to make them pay. But here's where most people go wrong. They react too soon, too emotionally, giving their enemies exactly what they want. But what if, instead of reacting, you stepped back? What if, instead of confronting them immediately, you let them believe they'd won? What if you played the long game, observing, learning, and waiting until the perfect moment when they least expect it to make your move? That is the power of strategic thinking. And once you master it, no one will ever be able to play you again. The problem is, most people are predictable. They act on impulse, driven by emotions, giving their enemies the advantage. But the truly powerful, the ones who never lose, they never let their emotions control their actions. They think 3 steps ahead. They don't react. They respond carefully, intelligently, with precision. Imagine someone underestimating you, thinking they've manipulated you into a corner. Instead of fighting back immediately, you watch. You let them believe their illusion. You learn their patterns, their weaknesses, their blind spots. And when the time is right, when they've overplayed their hand, you strike. Not with rage, not with reckless emotion, but with cold, calculated precision. This is the essence of dark stoicism. The Stoic understands that power isn't in loud displays of strength, but in silent, controlled action. A manipulator expects an outburst, an emotional response, a desperate attempt to fight back. What they don't expect? Your patience, your silence, your ability to think 5 moves ahead while they are still celebrating their temporary victory. Look at history, at the greatest strategists, the leaders who outplayed their enemies time and time again. They never rushed. They never acted out of desperation. They studied, they waited, and when the moment was right, they made their move so effectively that their enemies never saw it coming. That's how you win, not by reacting, but by planning. Think about your own life. Maybe there is someone trying to manipulate you right now, twisting situations, planting seeds of doubt, hoping you'll react without thinking. But what if, instead of reacting, you simply observe? You let them think they're in control while you quietly gather every piece of information you need. You let them talk, let them reveal their true intentions, and then, when the time is right, you remove them from your life, cut their influence without warning, or expose them in a way they never anticipated. Because the greatest power isn't in being loud and making threats or in showing your hand too soon. The greatest power is in making them believe they've won, right up until the moment they realize they never stood a chance. So let them play their games. Let them believe they are ahead. Keep your emotions locked away, your intentions hidden, your mind always calculating. And when the moment is right, you move. Decisively, unapologetically, and without warning. That is how you ensure no one ever plays you again.